have you been, stranger?
I've been crook, concentrating on her foot, trying to keep the image of the little balls of pantyhose at bay. But they were there forever, tangled up with the skin-coloured bra, the Kleenex smudged with lipstick.
Were you coming to see me?
Giving him another chance. He stifled a cough with the back of his hand. There was something I needed to get from the school, and raised his head. Tildy was 19 years old and worked as the tuck-shop lady at the primary school. She was pretty big, with a tiny waist and cushiony buttocks, and her hair was dyed blonde, with a severe fringe. From certain angles she looked minx-like. On this afternoon she wore a familiar tight-fitting green skirt. She nodded at his plastic bag.
So, what are you getting? Not stealing my tucker, were you?
Of course not.
What's in your bag, Alex?
Just sticks.
Sticks?
Yeah, ice cream sticks.
What in heaven's name for?
The other girl walked a pace or two away. Alex stepped onto the grass where she had stood. Listen, Tildy, in a low voice, at once ashamed and contrite. I'm sorry I haven't rung you. Tildy flexed her foot, studied the drizzle drops accumulating on the toe of her shoe. Bedridden with a streaming cold of the sort that he had learnt to catch when he was at school in England, Alex had been able to blot out the memory of their evening together, but now it returned in a cloud of heavy pollen. I mean it, he said, and coughed again. I'm really sorry. I couldn't get out of bed for 3 days, and there were things I had to do on the farm. She drummed her heel against the side of the fence.
So you weren't coming to see me?
He shook his head unhappily. Tildy, I'm sorry. She looked at his pale face and the plastic bag he was hugging to his chest and looked away. On a rotary clothesline over the fence, a damp shirt dipped in the wind. Her friend waited, whom Tildy now remembered.
Get your bum over here, Meredy. Meet this great guy.
And to him,
Alex, this is Meredy. We grew up together.
Then, possibly to boost her appeal, Tildy added,
She's at uni in Melbourne.
Still the girl did not turn, but crouched as though she were pulling something from the ground.
Perhaps Ray will get the wrong idea, she said over her shoulder. Maybe you ought to go on your own.
Her voice was almost a sigh, a coming to the surface of someone who was no longer a childhood friend doing something that children did. It came to Alex where he had seen her, pushing a wheelchair with a sick-looking man in it, and walking 2 steps behind had been a gaunt, middle-aged woman, probably her mother. They were making their solemn procession up the main street. Despite his fever, he could still visibly see Mrs. Grogan's expression as she backed out of the chemist with her poodle in her arms, talking to someone, and tripped into the lap of the invalid. Tildy glanced sharply down.
I told you, I'm not invited. Hey, Alex, give her a leg up.
The young woman stood and turned. About white-throated, needle-tailed swifts, his father had told him something that Alex had never forgotten. They spend a third of their life in the air before they nest. In the days and weeks ahead, Alex wondered if this did not define his own trajectory, feeding and sleeping on the wing and alighting on solid earth on the evening he caught sight of Meredy standing against Ray Grogan's fence. For a long while afterwards he would cleave to the idea that his life, halted at the age of 11 by the accident, began humming again in that moment. Rain making grey the washing. Tildy in her tight skirt manoeuvring her legs to the far side of the high fence, and the sea of sadness within the face that looked at him and made Alex in that moment feel tall and alone and, in another remembered phrase of his father's, more useless than a second toe. Her face grew simpler.
Hello, Alex.